Hey, good to see you for our day after podcast. That's never actually the day after, but it is following the previous week's sermon and just kind of diving a little bit deeper into that. Of course, we're continuing our series on the Sermon on the Mount. My name's Philip Thomas. This is Tom Burns with the Redeemed Idiot here at Journey Church in Elgin. Again, you can watch this. We have an app that's the Journey Elgin Church. You can download that app, and in the media section, you can watch the things that we do on Wednesday night with Redeemed Idiot, going through Revelation. You can watch all of the current sermons, and we're continuing to upload things into the app that will be there for you to either watch or to listen to. So the purpose of this is just to kind of look at what we talked about last Sunday. We realize that we're getting old, and sometimes we can't remember even, that's been over 4 days ago. It's like, oh man, I'm not sure.
Be the new Methuselah.
That's right. But the good thing is I know that we're going through the Sermon on the Mount, and so I know where we left off. So we did finish out chapter 5.
Right.
And looking at oaths, at retaliation, and loving your enemy, right? So, just in general, what any thoughts that you had, or things that I said that made you want to jump out of your seat or anything?
No. I think since you've taken on I shouldn't say taken on the Sermon on the Mount, but since you've been doing the Sermon on the Mount and just bringing into context what Christ is really saying away from the Pharisaical mentality. Mm-hmm. And your check boxes that you keep talking about. It's on touchy subjects. I mean, last week, we talked about lust and sex, and that's like, it's a taboo thing in the church, but it has to be talked about. I think this week what you did was really good, is because, you brought up, and I'll let you expand on it, is the whole thing, like, even within the political system and the way even just this country and the world is dividing itself based upon ideological thoughts and beliefs. That even in the midst of that you brought into light what Christ saying, you still love your enemies.
Yeah.
And that is a hard thing for people to grasp, because hate is now so rampant.
Oh,
it's just absolution of hate. You can see it on the social media, and then, because we have like a TikTok page, and so I'll go through it and watch, and there'll be somebody will pop up and it says, if you are this, get off my page. I hate you. Like, wow, man.
Yeah.
So you take on that thing of loving enemies and the eye for an eye and everything you're going to go through, that's something we need to hear. We need to like step back and, it's tough, but
we do. Yes. Yeah, we do. And, this whole section that Jesus is saying, you've heard this, but I say this, it's all getting to what's happening on the inside of you, right? Quit focusing on just following the rules to follow the rules. Let God transform who you are on the inside, right? And so even with the oaths, which is a very simple principle, it's let your yes be yes and your no be no. Don't manipulate people. Don't lie. Be a person who let their yes be yes and their no be no, right? Well, to do that, you have to really allow Christ to start changing you on the inside.
Right.
Right. And then that leads to specifically how we interact with other people, with the last two things that Jesus talks about. You've heard it said, an eye for an eye. But I say, if someone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the left also. And I do think that that's been a very misused, and this is why it's, as you said, it's so hard, because I think many times these have been misunderstood or misapplied, and it goes against some of our good human tendencies, right? Like we should have a tendency and a desire to stand up for ourselves when we are being wrong, right? We should recognize that there are enemies and to push back against evil and to push back against those who are pushing evil. And sometimes the way these passages have been interpreted is like, oh, you don't need to, you need to go against those
Right.
those feelings. I think that's a major mistake, and it does damage, and it probably makes people really struggle. Man, if that's what being a Christian is, I can't do that, right?
Right.
I would think with your personality, with your background, right? Like you're someone that is going to defend. You are going to strike back against evil when it's there. That's your personality. If if this is taught in a way that sometimes it is, that you should never do that, that would be really hard, I would think, for you to accept and follow this Christ, right?
Yeah. I don't even know how to, yeah, that would be tough. I mean, I guess even in terms of majority of like even my military thing has been over there against Islamic fascists or Islamic extremists. We'll say that. Even though there is that distaste and an accord and to fight against what they are doing, and it's I'm saying it's even for me, it's tough to battle to recognize and understand they're still human.
Yes.
And they still need Christ.
Yeah.
And there's times that does come up in what I'm doing. I'm not going to go into specifics, but there's been times I've been around them in a position where they're not in a position to fight, and seeing the wives and the children, and you grasp this indoctrination that's taken place. And it's happened where, I'm going to say that there is this compassion that will roll over you.
Yeah.
And I have stories on that, but there's this compassion rolls over. He's like, man, these are still people. They're just misguided.
Yeah.
So, and now those are kind of points, highlights sometimes like, okay, I don't have to always be angry. I don't have to be filled with hate. I don't have to want to kill everything. It's like, okay, the fight's over.
Yeah.
There's still people. I don't know if that helps. It's just,
no, so
it's a battle sometimes.
So this is leading. So this is all just kind of, we're going to dive back into it. And what I tried to address on Sunday is there should be tension within us. It is a challenge. I think these passages have been used to support, the pacifism, right? That you should never strike back, that you shouldn't even defend yourself. I've heard that kind of teaching that, well, Jesus said to just turn the other cheek. So that means we just let ourselves be run over. That's not what he was saying here, right? What he's saying is our main goal should be seeking the good of the other person. That's what we should do. And so in every situation, how can we seek the good of the other person, which many times is de-escalating, right? Whenever Jesus uses that example of being slapped on the right cheek, that would have been a backhand. That would have been an insult. It wasn't necessarily that someone is beating you to kill you. It was you would see masters do this to their slaves, right? It's a very demeaning act. And what Jesus is saying is he's saying respond in a different way. Respond in a way that will make that person step back and maybe think twice, right? And so, you just, in a very literal example that Jesus is giving, so a master slaps his slave. Well, if that slave strikes back, what's going to happen? He's going to be destroyed, right? Because all of society is on the master's side, right? So that master, even if that slave is able to physically overpower his master, he's on the run now for the rest of his life, and he's going to be crucified, right? So, well, that's a dumb way to respond. Also, cowering in fear, right? And just crying and everything like that. That's just going to encourage the master's behavior of continuing to backhand you, right? Jesus is saying, wait, we want to do things that give that person an opportunity to change their behavior. And so by turning the other cheek, that's out of the box thinking, right?
Right.
And it doesn't mean that master is going to change, but it is giving him the opportunity, and you are kind of taking control of the situation in order to seek what is best for that person. And it is hard. And again, Jesus is not saying that you never stand up for yourself or anything, but
Right.
in all that we do, even when people are wronging us. So all these examples that Jesus gives, the slapping on the cheek, the being sued wrongly, right? And then the last one, go 2 miles instead of 1 mile. So, right, you're being forced to carry Roman armor for a mile, which is what the law allowed, but you go 2 miles. You are being treated unfairly in all of those circumstances. But you can respond in a way that hopefully seeks the good of that other person, that maybe makes them step back and realize, you know what, my actions here,
Right.
maybe I'm in the wrong. Because we should desire for those people to come to know Christ, essentially, right? And so that should be the type of person that we are. It doesn't mean that you just let yourself get beat up. It doesn't mean that you don't defend your family. It doesn't mean that you don't fight a lawsuit against you. But the principle is about looking at that other person and seeking the good for them.
Right.
But that's hard.
It is tough. And do you think also, I mean, so as you've gone through those three there, so you have the oathing, which is, lying and deception, the striking in the face, it's violence, and we say disrespect, like the backhanded thing. And then you have going the extra mile, or doing the mile, going the extra mile, is that unfairness, being treated unfairly.
Yeah.
Do you think also, I'm just asking your opinion on all those kind of combined, they're all, they scream, this is what we go through in life. And that even though we are going through these things, whether it be violence, disrespect, lying, deception, being treated unfairly, that we still, it's not about just literally turning the other cheek, it's still loving that person despite whatever is going on. Because one, that's what Christ has told us to do, is to love one and love all, and disciple all. So do you think it's also a description of like, this is just what we go through in life by everybody? I still love them.
So. Yes. I think that's a really good point. I mean, like, in your life, you are going to be mistreated. You're going to be treated unfairly, right? You're going to experience injustice. I don't care who you are, right? I think this is very applicable to today. We talk about kind of the victim ideology, right? And there are some who even like to be the victim, right? And in fact, that elevates your status if you're the victim,
right?
And the reality is no, all of us are going to be victims throughout life, right? We're going to be taken advantage of. That's because we live in a fallen world, right? We live in a world that sin has corrupted, and it's corrupted. All of us are corrupted by it. And so, yes, recognizing, don't focus on how you've been wronged. Focus on how you are treating the person in the midst of being wronged, right?
Right.
It's tough. And it is tough. And I do think the order here that Jesus is going makes sense. So he is saying, you're going to be wrong. You're going to be frustrated, but reframe that, right? Don't allow yourself to start striking back, because if you, in inappropriate ways, right? Because if you do that, then you are going to start seeing that person not as a person created in the image of God. You are just going to see them as an enemy, right? And that leads to him talking about enemy, right? Whenever he says, you have heard it said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, right? Now, it's important to recognize that was a societal changing teaching in the Bible, right? Because that was equal justice. It acknowledged that we do need to have retribution for whenever we have been wrong. So the easiest example is if someone commits murder, there needs to be retribution dealt out, right?
Right.
But eye for eye, tooth for tooth was a limiting principle that many societies did not follow. So what would happen is you would have one tribe or group of people, and they would kill somebody from this tribe. Well, then this tribe get ticked, and so they'd be like, well, in retribution, we're going to kill that whole person's family, right? Well, then this tribe would respond by saying, well, you killed the whole family, and so now we're going to destroy your whole tribe, right? And it was just an escalating principle. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth was actually a limiting principle that, yes, evil needs to be held accountable, but it needs to be, the punishment needs to fit the crime.
Right.
Right.
Way to put it.
And so Jesus is not throwing that out. In fact, we need that in a society. We need to recognize that principle. But Jesus is saying, if you apply that to your individual relationships, though, right, you're always just going to be focused on, okay, well, I've been wronged. What can I do to wrong that person? Up to a certain level.
Retaliation.
So you're focused more on what the retaliation should be. And Jesus is saying, no, in your individual relationships, you need to not see people as the enemy, even though sometimes they are, right? And your example of what, I mean, you're in a battle, that they are the real enemy, right? That is an ideology that is an enemy and has to be dealt with, right? And so in the moment, sometimes that means violence and things like that, of pushing back against the enemy. But then we also have to step back and recognize that on an individual level, the person is not our enemy. And we need to pray for them. We need to seek what is best for them, seek the good of that other person, right? We desire for them to come to know Christ. If we get caught in just this black and white of seeing everyone who disagrees with me sees them as an enemy, what does that lead to? It leads to us desiring their destruction, desiring their being held accountable, rather than desiring what is good for them. And that's a dangerous path for us to go down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's just, I don't know that man, I don't know. It's so tough to get beyond, sometimes to get beyond that. I don't want to say the word hate, but that hateful, retaliatory, dislike, distrust, division, stay away from me, I don't want to talk to you type of personality. And then Christ is bringing this out. And we understand this. It's the right answer.
Yes.
Because when it makes our lives a little bit easier and we have less hate and disregard for people.
Yeah.
And just let that kind of go and hope and pray and be there for the best of people. Yeah. But that's rough.
Oh,
it's rough.
No, this is one of the hardest teachings of Jesus. And it definitely goes to the fact you cannot do this on your own, right? If you are viewing things as a checkbox, that today, check, didn't consider anyone an enemy, right? No, that is not going to happen, because you cannot do this on your own. There is too much evil out there. The enemy, Satan, he's the ultimate enemy. He is working overtime, right? And so we have to allow Christ to begin changing us on the inside, so that we're able to recognize, oh, I'm starting to get angry. I'm starting to see that person in an unhealthy way. I need to back off. This this is such a challenge. So let's bring this into the real world today. Here's one that I struggle with, right? Is I see what's happening in society. There are some ideologies out there that are, I believe, are designed to hurt children and to deceive children. So we'll just use the LGBT agenda that is out there, this new push that we've seen within the last few years, that is that literally goes into kindergartens and will talk to children and ask them about their gender, and are starting to plant the seeds that lead to children questioning whether they really are a boy or really are a girl. People that push that agenda, I have a deep righteous hatred for, right? And I have to be really careful because I know it gets all wrapped up into political stuff, and we need to be compassionate for those who do struggle with this. I completely agree, but the fact that we're pushing this ideology is to me an abomination, and we have to push back against that. The danger is we start seeing every person who has been deceived by that ideology, or may come down in a different place than us. It's easy to see them as the enemy and just dismiss them and basically want to see them destroyed.
Right.
Well, the reality is many people have been deceived on these issues. If we see them as the enemy, then we just want to see them defeated. What we should desire is for them to wake up to the truth, of Christ, that all are created in the image of God, that God created our children male and female, and that their purpose and their meaning is found in Him, in a relationship with Him. Right? They're being deceived on a level that's trying to keep them from ever even acknowledging and coming to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. We should desire for people to be able to experience that.
Right.
So we have to be very careful, and it actually will help you in engaging in these topics when you're very conscious of, no, I cannot see them as my enemy. I need to see them as people who are deceived, that I want what is best for them, knowing that it may not happen, right? That their minds may not be changed. But do you get further in an argument by just yelling and berating somebody, or by listening, right? Giving them the opportunity because you want what's best for them. That means, okay, I want to listen to what you have to say, but then I am going to respond and refute those things that are wrong. If you're only seeing them as an enemy, your temptation is to never even engage in conversations like that, which overall is where we are as a society.
Right.
That is because we're being conditioned to see people who disagree with us as the enemy.
Right.
And once you do that, you don't have any productive conversations, right? And so that's where society is. So as individuals, we need to really work on, okay, no, I'm not going to see the individual as the enemy. They're someone who is deceived, who needs to know Christ and the truth of Christ. And how can I allow God to use me to maybe plant a seed, right? But if we just view everybody who disagrees with us as an enemy, we're not even going to try.
Right.
Exactly.
When you mentioned that, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying and the clarity of it. When you mentioned the LGBTQ plus or LGBTQ, and you said the righteous hatred, you don't have a righteous hatred for the people.
No.
It's the ideologies that are being pushed and persuaded. Because I know there's those that are lesbian, those that are bi, those are gay. Because the boy-girl thing, that more fits into the trans aspect of that. Right. But even there's many of them that don't like the ideological thing and trying to convince.
Exactly.
a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, no, you're really a girl
Mm-hmm.
because you played with a doll.
Right.
And I want to make sure that's clear because I don't want somebody listening.
Oh, yeah, no.
Oh, he hates the LGBTQ. He hates us all. We all need to die. No, it's not what you're saying.
No.
That's the ideological beliefs you see politically, even by people who aren't even part of that community as far as being lesbian, bi, gay, trans.
Yes.
They just push an ideology down on them. I mean, am I correct in saying that?
Yes, you're completely correct.
Okay.
And again, the whole point. So I use that term, that righteous hatred, because that's what people will feel from whatever direction they're coming at, right?
Right.
That it's easy for us to give into that feeling, right? And that's what Jesus is saying. Wait, if you see people as an enemy, you're going to let that feeling direct how you treat them, right?
Right.
You're just going to let that hatred go. And
right.
No, you're thank you for clarifying that. No, because just because of someone's sexual preferences and all of that again, that doesn't make them your enemy.
Right.
They believe something different, and it may be something that goes against the word of God, but they're still not your enemy, right? You should again seek what is good for them, and the reality is that means we should be treating them with respect and trying to develop a trusting relationship enough to where maybe we can share what we believe is true.
Okay.
Because we want what's best for them, right?
No, 100%. And I wanted to just put my own personal thing to what I've seen with you. For those who don't know, there was a transgender person that came here,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very, not surprised. I was very like, wow, that's how you handle this. You treated that person just like it was any other person in the congregation. You didn't belittle them for nothing. It's like you should demonstrate that love. You talk to that person and just went along with your sermon. So I want to make that clear so no one thinks, oh man, it's one of those people that hate everybody. It's like, no.
But I think
you demonstrate that love.
Yeah, and I think it's important to bring that out because again, what has happened in our culture is we are, and I think this is part of the larger spiritual battle, right? is that we're being conditioned to believe if someone doesn't agree with me or if someone doesn't affirm my lifestyle, then they are my enemy.
Right.
No, that's not it. We can disagree, and I can, and I can still have a relationship with someone even if I don't affirm their lifestyle.
Right. Exactly.
Because again, and this is on us as Christians, we have to be the ones who don't treat people who have alternative lifestyles, who treat people who, teach heresies, all of that, whatever
right.
area of life it is that teach things that go against the word of God. We cannot fall into that trap of seeing them as enemies.
Right.
Because the moment you do that, you now are on that path of where you want them just to experience retribution. You just want them to experience the consequences of their sinfulness, right?
Right.
You know what? God handles all that. We should want what is best for people, which is to introduce them to what is true, what is good, what is beautiful, that is found in Jesus Christ.
Right.
And if we treat them as the enemy, we're done.
Yeah, we definitely are. And I think with your sermon this week on the Sermon on the Mount, which is kind of interesting, that all those things that we struggle with, the hate, the lies, everything that goes in our life, we just kind of push back against it, and we have a problem with man, this is like, holy. What I think is really kind of cool within all that is Christ is teaching this prior to his crucifixion and resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about the term God, everybody has there's so many gods been out there in all of human history, all these gods. And it's easy to sit in this divine area of authority if you're a god and develop all these rules, regulations, and expectations on your little humanoids running around down here. And you can't maintain that. But for him to come down in a human form and demonstrate that to prove I did it too.
Yeah.
Or I didn't do the bad part of it. But here's what I'm saying. that when he stood on the cross, when he was up on the cross, he's saying, hate your enemies in that sermon, but he's on the cross, and everybody that persecuted him, everybody that hated him, everybody that slapped him, everybody that slapped, I mean, all the things that happened to him, he still made the statement, forgive them, for they know not what they have done.
Yeah.
Because he knows they don't understand the full truth.
Yes.
And it wasn't about him. It was about, like you say, the ideological beliefs they had or how they are. He still had that ability to forgive, even though he is in pain, bleeding out on a cross, and can barely even breathe.
Yeah.
He still had that ability to love and forgive. I don't hate him.
Yeah.
And that's because that's what makes our God, and I'm going to say it, the God, who he is, because he experienced this and demonstrated, I'll show you how to love, even in the midst of the worst crucifixion, the worst type of death at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, right? They have been deceived. They're believing things that are not true, right? And Jesus, he knew they were his enemy, right? Like, I mean, in a literal sense, they were his enemy, right? But yet his desire was for their good, for them to see what they did, and that they would be forgiven if they would, right? So that is such an important teaching for us. Understand, we have enemies. There are ideologies out there that right now are an enemy to the gospel message.
Right. Oh yeah.
Fully, right? And that's like what the LGBTQ agenda is an enemy to the gospel message, right? And it's trying to harm people. And then there are those who have bought into that. So they are enemies to the message of what is true, good, and beautiful. But we have to treat them as Jesus would have, and treat them in a way, hopefully, that we can share the message of forgiveness, the message of hope, the message of truth that the gospel message has. And so we should desire the good for them. We recognize they're our enemy, but we don't treat them as such, because you want to destroy your enemies.
Right.
We can't go down that road. And again, this is a hard one, and no one's going to get this right all the time.
No way.
Right? I mean, no way.
But we run around with that. People run around the little wristbandy thing that says WWJD, what would Jesus do? And that, I think that's the example.
Yeah.
What did Jesus do?
Yeah.
He still forgave.
Yeah.
He still let it go.
He did.
Doesn't mean he was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Hit that nail again. This feels so good. And thank you for doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. No. In fact, that's a good point. He would have never been on the cross if he just gave in to his enemies.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is not saying
That's
give
true.
in. This is not saying, oh, well, because I can't see you as my enemy, I'm just going to accept everything that you believe, right?
Right.
I'm just going to accept your premise.
That's a good point. Yeah.
No. Jesus pushed back, but he did it in a way because he desired for them to know the truth, right? We should want people to be free from their bondage of the ideologies that are enslaving them to something that is not true.
Right.
And it's important to have that frame of reference. So we should strive to do that. Again, don't view it as a checkbox, right?
Right.
But just continue to dive into your relationship with Christ, and allow him to start changing that on the inside. And when you have those moments of feeling that anger bubbling up, take a step back. No, that's a person created in the image of God as well. They ultimately are not my enemy. Maybe they've been deceived, but they are not my enemy, and I need to love them the way Christ does. It doesn't even mean you have to like them, right? It's like,
Right.
It doesn't mean that you have to become best friends. You still need to probably have boundaries, but you can love them the way Christ did, that you desire for them to be able to experience that forgiveness, right? Just as he did on the cross.
Exactly.
So, all right. We could go down lots of rabbit holes.
Yeah.
On this.
Absolutely.
But
It was a good talk.
It was. So look forward. We'll be in chapter 6, the first part of chapter 6 on Sunday, and would love for you to come join us 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings. Again, you can watch this on Journey Elgin Church app. also on our YouTube page and things like that. But the app is the easiest one to watch. All right. Well, thank you very much, Tom.
No, thank you, man.